I've been on almost 100 cruises with Royal Caribbean, and I've gone to many different places around the world. But in thinking about the cruises I would definitely do again, and a couple I would skip, I wanted to share with you some of the sailings that truly stood out for different reasons. When you go to pick a cruise, I think you want to find an amazing vacation. Certainly, you don't want to pick a cruise that people will tell you is an absolute mistake. And when it comes to picking itineraries, there's a lot of reasons to pick one over the other. And a lot of it has to do with personal preferences, but some cruises definitely lean in one direction over another. So today, I wanted to share with you, after 100 cruises with Royal Caribbean, the 7 cruises that I would do again and skip. Starting with, of course, the cruises I would do again, the Norwegian Fjords. Now, I've done, oh my goodness, how many have I done now? Like 3 Norwegian Fjords cruises, and I absolutely have loved all of them. The great thing about Norwegian Fjords cruises, and the reason why I've done 3 of them so far, I would love to do even more, is the beautiful scenery and the places you visit. Norway is a combination of big cities, as well as beautiful landscapes and serene areas all around. We're going to talk about Alaska in a little bit, but Norway differs in that it's not just rural, amazing landscapes, but also incorporates cities as well. And what I love about Norway is the weather is absolutely fantastic. It's great for being outdoors. And I like that there's a good mix of both adventurous things to do, as well as simply taking in the culture and history of the area. I think that mix also really blended well for my family because I have kids, and as they're getting older, their jadedness, I think that's a word, certainly comes up. But when we did Norway with them, they actually enjoyed it quite a bit. And that says something because ultimately when you're taking a family vacation, I think when you have a good mix of things to do that keeps everybody engaged in the vacation, that's a win overall. Truly, when you visit Norway, I think it's one of those things you have to experience for yourself and see it, but you're transported into a different world. And some of the views you can have, the amazing food you can experience, and the people you meet are truly incredible. And this is really why I've gone back to Norway a couple different times. The second kind of cruise I would do over and over again, and I continue to do over and over again, are Western Caribbean cruises. I love the Western Caribbean because it gets to bring me to places in Mexico. There are a lot of amazing places in the Caribbean you can visit, but truly the Western Caribbean to me is a very enjoyable kind of cruise because it offers a good mix of beach, culture, and food, most importantly. I really think one of the X factors in having a great cruise vacation is the food that's involved with it. And certainly Royal Caribbean has great food on board, but when you're visiting the ports of call, I want to have something that really makes me feel like, wow, this is something I can't get at home. And the food authenticity in Mexico, even though we do have a lot of Mexican restaurants back home, it's just nothing like it when you get it actually in Mexico. So I love that aspect of it. Plus, you have very mature ports, let's call it that, because there's a lot of things to do here. These are not one of these ports of call that's like, well, there's one thing to do here, and that's pretty much it. When you're visiting places like Cozumel, where there's a ton of different activities, you can go to the beach, you can go shopping, you can see Mayan ruins, you can do all sorts of other activities in there. I really love that mix. And so I really am a sucker for the Western Caribbean cruises. Now, for a lot of folks, this is going to be probably one of your first cruises you take. Ultimately, a lot of new cruisers will end up on 7-night cruises, and there's like a 50-50 chance you're either going Western or Eastern Caribbean. And I generally love the Western Caribbean a lot. So I didn't want to make this all about exotic itineraries. There's something to be said about a great Western Caribbean cruise. Number 3, Alaska. Now, I love Alaska cruises ever since I took my first one because it was one of those sailings everybody said, Matt, you got to try it. And I was like, yeah. Then I tried it. I was like, oh, now I get it. Alaska is absolutely breathtaking. This video is not going to properly encapsulate the majestic nature of the area. When you're actually there and you see the scale of Alaska, it truly is mind-boggling in a good way. And every time I go, I've loved it. I often joke that the last time I went to Alaska, which was one of my favorite cruises I took there, I actually got COVID, but I still love that cruise so much because of the amazing places we got to visit. I think it also helps that Alaska is one of those places in the world where actually visiting by cruise ship is better than doing it on land. When you're visiting other places around the world, you can make the argument that going on land has an advantage in a couple ways. But with Alaska, sailing is really the only way to get to some of these places because many are not even accessible by road. It's only airplane or boat. I truly believe Alaska should be on pretty much everybody's must-do list at some point, and I would move it right to the top of that list because it really is a must-do. And the other type of cruise I'll do over and over again are cruises that stop at Perfect Day at CocoCay. It may seem pedestrian, but quite frankly, there is something to be said about what I think, and I think a lot of people agree with me, is the very best private island experience in the entire cruise industry right now. Now, I've been in Perfect Day CocoCay, like 50 times or something like that at this point, and I'll probably go another 50 times, but it says a lot about the quality of the experience that's there. When you talk about a cruise you'd love to do over and over again, I think it has to do with the places that truly draw you in, and Perfect Day CocoCay has a lot. If you've been there at least once, you probably have that feeling of, I would love to come back here again and spend more time. And as somebody that's gone there dozens of times, it still draws me back. I love the breadth of experiences and the variety of choices. Like, it's not just go to the beach, sit under an umbrella, and enjoy your day. You can go to the beach. You can go to the adults only area, the water park, the pool, hang out at the deck and just enjoy some live music. I mean, there's a lot of different things. There's excursions, there's zip lines. Maybe I'm a little biased because I remember the old days of CocoCay and I remember what other private island experiences were like that were much tamer. But this is truly a big game changer. It's also why I'm really, really excited for Perfect Day Mexico when that opens in 2027. But in the meantime, I will consistently go to Perfect Day CocoCay every time and not have any complaints about that. All right, here are the 3 itineraries, though, that I would skip or at least think twice or 3 times about before booking. Number 1 is an itinerary that visits Falmouth and Nassau in the same itinerary. So obviously not every port can be amazing, and Falmouth, Jamaica, and Nassau, Bahamas are probably my bottom 2. Now, Falmouth is one of those ports, and this has been the case for a long time, that just doesn't have a lot going on for it. The best things about Falmouth are usually too far away to do. It's like over an hour drive each way, and this is the product of Royal Caribbean building a port in the middle of nowhere, whereas previously they used to have port calls in either Montego Bay or Ocho Rios, and there was a lot more to do in those places. Now, obviously, that boat has sailed, and Royal Caribbean is clearly committed to Falmouth, and just there's not a lot going on there, and I wish there was, and I don't love it. Nassau, and we've talked about this in other videos, just is one of those ports that ranks consistently poorly among cruisers. Royal Caribbean is seen in their own data, where it's in the bottom 10% of guest satisfaction. Now, this will probably change when Royal Caribbean opens its beach club at the end of this year, and I think that will radically change the appeal of Nassau. But overall, as it stands right now, it is one of those itineraries that if I see we're only going to like Falmouth and Nassau, I'm probably not booking that cruise. I mean, it would have to be something really compelling to get me on board. Number 2 is a cruise to Ensenada, like one of those like 3 or 4 nighters out of California that visits just like Ensenada, so basically one of those short cruises. But I wrote here in my notes, I wouldn't just fly out for that. I didn't hate Ensenada. A lot of people said they hated Ensenada, and it's the Nassau of the West Coast, and I can kind of understand why they would think that. But the thing is, I didn't hate Ensenada, but I wouldn't necessarily fly out just for that. For this particular cruise, I was invited by Royal Caribbean to check out the new Ovation of the Seas, sailing out of LA. It was a new itinerary change, and so a deployment there. And hey, got an opportunity to go check out a new itinerary, a new ship, I'm going to do that. But obviously flying from Florida to California for a 3-night cruise, probably not the best ROI in the grand scheme of things. So when you're looking at a cruise that visits just Ensenada, like again, a 3-night sailing out of LA, I would look at it as this. Would I necessarily do that itinerary alone? No. But if you either combine that with another sailing, doing a back-to-back or even a side-to-side, in which you do a 3-nighter Ensenada, and then maybe shift over to like Navigator of the Seas, offering a 7-night cruise down the Baja Peninsula, then that would be worth it. But it makes you really consider about these kind of itineraries that are truly worth your time. Ensenada wasn't bad. I didn't hate it. In fact, I'd probably go to Ensenada today over, say, again, Falmouth or Nassau. But also, I haven't been to Ensenada nearly as many times as Falmouth or Nassau, so maybe that's just me. But I wanted to come up with an itinerary that really, truly, I thought, I really would think twice about doing that again. And over in Europe, the France and Spain itinerary. So last year, I did a cruise on Anthem of the Seas out of Southampton, England, that visited France and northern Spain. And I liked my cruise. I don't want to make this seem like it was a terrible cruise. The thing was, this is definitely the B-list itinerary in the grand scheme of Europe. I'm not talking about it within a vacuum, because within a vacuum, it's a great sailing. But when you're looking at European itineraries, I really think this particular one, while it's good, just pales in comparison to just about every other European itinerary out there, whether it's a cruise in the Adriatic, Greek Isles, Mediterranean, Norwegian Fjords, Northern Europe. I just feel like almost every other single European itinerary is probably superior, especially if it's your first time in Europe. My goodness. I mean, this would definitely be almost a mistake to do that as your first one. But even if you've been to a couple others, I still feel like there's more value in those other places. The problem with this particular itinerary is there's a lot of remote destinations. Like you visit Bordeaux and Paris. I'm using air quotes here because you actually don't visit those places. You dock in a nearby port, and if you'd like to visit Bordeaux or Paris in France, it's going to require a very long bus ride. In the case of Paris, it's almost a 3-hour bus ride, and Bordeaux is like closer to 2 hours each way. I did it because I wasn't sure I'll ever go back again, but man, those were really long travel days. Now, the two ports in northern Spain, Bilbao and A Coruña, were beautiful places, and I love the history of them. But again, it just wasn't like, wow, you guys really need to go see this in the same way that, say, the Norwegian Fjords did, or even Western Caribbean did. It was nice. I enjoyed my cruise. But again, in the grand scheme of European itineraries, I just feel like it's probably not worth doing unless you've done everything else before that. All right, my friends, there's my controversial, crazy takes. I'm sure the comments will go nuts on this. Probably not. About all my cruises I would do and do again. What are your itineraries that truly stand out to you as ones you would absolutely do again, or you hit the skip button for? To see what I loved and hated about my very first European cruise, check out my video here. I think it's going to give you some really good insight as to why I fell in love with Norway and some things that maybe I had to change up about it. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications. That way YouTube lets you know when we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. We'll talk again real soon.